Set to make history, the Seahawks and Buccaneers will battle across the pond in the first ever regular season game in Germany. Who's got the advantage? David Harrison of Locked On Bucs and myself will be breaking the matchup down in our latest Crossover Thursday on the Locked On Podcast Network.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Locked On Bucs and the Locked On Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Seattle Seahawks, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And we thank you for making us your first listen or first view of the day. I'm David Harrison of Bucs Game Day, and sitting next to me, if you're watching us, and talking next to me if you're listening to us, is Corbin Smith of All Seahawks. Both sites, part of Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation family of sites. And of course, you can find Corbin on Twitter at Corbin Smith NFL, and you can find me at DHarrison82. This Crossover Thursday episode is presented by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is fun, easy to play, and there's no competing against know-it-all fantasy pros. It's just you versus the projections. Pick 2 to 5 players, predict how they'll perform against their projections, and you're all set. Get it right and win up to 10 times your money per entry. We love Prize Picks, and you will too. First-time users, you get a 100% deposit match using the promo code Locked On. Corbin, for the National Football League, the biggest story of this matchup is the first regular season game, first official game held in Germany for the NFL, and just part of their kind of overseas expansion. We've seen games in a multitude of countries, but regular season is a little bit of a newer thing. Just spoke to Mike Alstott, actually, former Tampa Bay Buccaneers player, legend of the team, and he recalled playing a preseason game in Japan. But this is regular season. The win or loss counts. It's not a vacation. It is a business trip. But for the Seahawks, what is the biggest storyline coming into this matchup?
Well, David, it continues to be number 7 under center. Geno Smith just continues week in, week out to play like a top 5 quarterback. And at this point, I guess it's not as surprising to me because we're 9 games into the season. This is a big enough sample size now that you feel like this is legitimate. This is not fluky. This guy had a ton of talent coming out of West Virginia. He was a 2nd-round pick for a reason. He put up huge numbers at West Virginia, but it just didn't work out with the New York Jets. And really, that's a chronic thing for Jets quarterbacks. Things just don't work out for high draft picks there. Zach Wilson maybe can be the one that bucks that trend, but Geno then spent the last 7 years in quarterback purgatory as a backup for 3 different teams, including for the Seahawks. And now he gets his opportunity, and he has just ran with it. He is the perfect fit for Shane Waldron's offense. He's attacking the middle of the field. He's distributing the football to his bevy of receivers and tight ends. I'm going to mention the tight ends a lot because I don't know that there's a better trio of tight ends in the NFL right now than what the Seahawks are putting out there on Sundays with Will Dissly, Noah Fant, and Colby Parkinson. But Geno Smith has been what has made this offense hum with his efficiency, completing over 73% of his passes and distributing it to everybody. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett might not have the gaudiest numbers of their career, but they're being really efficient. They're getting the ball to their tight ends, their secondary receivers, their running backs are getting involved. And that has made this a highly efficient, potent machine. And that's the big reason why, along with an improved defense over the last 4 weeks, they're 6-3 and in the driver's seat in the NFC West.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, look, a lot of people, right? We've all heard it probably by now. A lot of people wrote him off, but he didn't write back, and he's still not writing back, although he does like to write back some media members when he thinks that they're saying some not so nice things about him. He's not alone. He's not the only guy out there doing it. But Geno, Corbin saying nice things, so maybe write back to him and say you appreciate the nice things, because look, they're factual and they're true. And whether anybody saw it coming or not, Geno is out there putting on a show and giving hope to backup quarterbacks everywhere that, look, your time can come. Just keep going. For the Buccaneers offense, they're hoping that their time is coming as well. And granted, Tom Brady has had several years of it being his time, but this season the Buccaneers offense just cannot get it together. And that's the biggest story, I think, for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming into this matchup, is whether or not we saw this offense wake up at the end of that Rams game. So the Bucs scored just 6 points on their first 10 possessions against the Los Angeles Rams last weekend, scored 10 in the final 3 to come back and get a last second win, a 9 seconds left on the clock victory over the Rams. And they had so obviously 10 points, touchdown, and a field goal. And they had the ball in goal to go on the drive that they did not score points. So their last 3 drives all ended up in scoring position after scoring just 6 points in their first 10. So what changed in those last 3 drives? Well, the offense went more up tempo. And as everybody has kind of already pointed out, it looked like Tom Brady was directing the play calling a little bit more than maybe offensive coordinator Byron Leftwich was. Now, listen, if you know about the way the NFL operates, you know that even in no huddle during certain parts of the play clock, the offensive coordinator and quarterback can be in conversation. So while Tom is out there running things and calling plays as it appears on camera, Byron may be in his earpiece, and I can't imagine Byron Leftwich just standing there observing Tom Brady like a paid ticket holder. So I'm going to give a little bit of credit to Byron, but it sure looked like that more up-tempo offense is really what got them going towards the end of that game. So now everybody's wondering, is that going to be the version of the Bucs offense that the Seahawks see, is a more up-tempo, kind of playing off the hip, Tom Brady kind of sensing things as he goes through and calling them as he sees fit? Because if they do, that's not something the Seahawks are going to have a lot of tape on to get ready for. But the flip side of that, Corbin, the Rams were also playing pretty soft, right? Which teams have with the lead typically tend to do towards the later part of the game because they're trying to keep everything in front of them, keep the clock running, maybe see if they can't get that clock to expire before the opponent gets enough points to win the game. Didn't work out for the Rams, but to me, that's the biggest question is are we going to see the traditional Buccaneers offense that really hasn't done a whole lot leading up to that point, or are we going to see the more up-tempo last 3 series of the game against Los Angeles Bucs offense that we saw just last week?
Yeah, and that's really interesting that you mentioned that because the Seahawks, 2 of their past 4 games have been against the Cardinals, who the main thing they try to do offensively is run up tempo. Now, granted, they have been terrible at it this year. There's a reason that they're 3-6 now in the season. They have not been able to consistently run that style of offense. Tom Brady is on another level compared to Kyler Murray. Murray's a talented player, but doesn't have near the resume, obviously, and there's questions about coaching there. So the Seahawks, from that perspective, they've had plenty of experience playing teams that have gone up-tempo against them, and they've done it fairly well, especially the last 4 games where they have been much more aggressive defensively. And that doesn't necessarily mean they're blitzing more because that's not what's happening, but their defensive linemen are 1-gapping now instead of doing a bunch of read and react 2-gapping, and that was a better fit for the players that they have. They have a lot of really athletic defensive tackles that are better as penetrators than read and react players. That is letting the entire rest of the defense play more aggressive, and they're giving up less than 13 points per game on defense the last 4 games. They've won all 4 of those games. So really going into aggressive mode and playing more of an aggressive style from the front to the back has really paid dividends. Now the question is, are we going to be able to play like that against somebody like Tom Brady that obviously has seen everything in his long, illustrious NFL career?
Yeah, I mean, look, you talk about playing aggressive. I mean, I've always had the mindset I'd rather go down fighting than going down backing up and backpedaling. You know what I mean? So that's just kind of the way that I like to do things. Raheem Morris apparently and Sean McVay have a different idea of how to play late game defense, but it is what it is. You mentioned the Seahawks tight ends and weapons that Geno Smith has been having help him. I also wonder if that up-tempo pace kind of helped those Buccaneers weapons and receivers kind of have Tom Brady's back a little bit better, because early in the game, you had some uncharacteristic drops that really didn't help out their quarterback. And fortunately for me, Corbin, I know you're a recent newlywed, so welcome to the club. I have been married for quite a while. With my 20th wedding anniversary just 6 months away, I'm super happy that Blue Nile has my back the way the Seahawks tight ends have had Geno Smith's back, because I got to make sure I get exactly what I need to show my wife how grateful I am for her putting up with my crap for 2 decades so far. NFL teams these days, Corbin can barely commit to a crappy head coach situation for 2 years, but my wife is holding on to this thing harder than Dan Snyder clutching onto his owner's club ID card. More on that coming Thursday. Keep your eyes out for that. And Blue Nile can help you make your celebration or proposal all the more memorable as well. They have a large selection of independently graded diamonds priced significantly below traditional retailers and offer easy-to-use online tools that let you choose the diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as the setting. If none of those words made any sense to you, then they also have jewelry experts available 24/7 via phone or chat to help you get exactly what you need. So shop stress-free with Blue Nile's 100% satisfaction guarantee, because all Blue Nile orders are insured and shipped for free in discreet packaging. Make your moment sparkle with Blue Nile. Go to BlueNile.com. Use the code LOCKEDON to save $50 on your purchase of $500 or more. That's BLUENILE.com, code locked on to save $50 on your purchase of $500 or more. BlueNile.com, code locked on. All right, guys, time to get into the key matchups as the Seahawks travel to play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who travel to host them in Munich, Germany, a historic event for the National Football League. We're going to continue to share our intel for that upcoming contest. Also, make sure while we're doing that, you're also checking out Locked On Sports today. Go beyond the scoreboard, behind the scenes with local experts and insight only Locked On can provide. Available on this app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. Corbin, for the Seattle Seahawks, you mentioned those tight ends. Is this where they come back up? Is that the key matchup? Is those tight ends versus Buccaneers defense, or do you have something else in mind for Geno and Seattle?
I'm going to go away from the skill positions because going into this game, my biggest concern, both figuratively and literally, is trying to block Vita Vea in the middle. And Austin Blythe has been a solid upgrade at center for Seattle over former starter Ethan Posick. I think he's done a really nice job. The communication has really been upped compared to previous seasons. They've got two right guards they're rotating in that both are starter caliber players. And Damian Lewis is playing some of the best football of his career the last couple of weeks. So that interior line has been playing much better, but they seem to have more trouble with bigger bodied defensive tackles that are also athletic and disruptive. And Vita Vea checks off every single one of those boxes, not just as a run stuffer. He's leading the Buccaneers with 6.5 sacks. And so I think that is a concern for the Seahawks team. Geno Smith has been able to get the football out fairly quickly. He's done a good job of navigating the pocket. But if there has been one thing that's been a problem occasionally, it has been interior pressure. And when you're dealing with a player like Vita Vea in the middle who can be a game wrecker by himself, that is certainly concerning. It doesn't matter if you've got DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and the trio of tight ends. I would think that those tight ends would come in handy more if you're trying to get rid of the football quicker. And they're probably going to have to do that because of Vita Vea in the middle. Him going against Austin Blythe or against those guards, he's going to have some advantages there, even as well as Seattle's playing in the interior. So they can't let Vita Vea take over this football game. And obviously the Buccaneers have a few other guys in the middle that can get the job done. But he is the one that the Seahawks absolutely cannot just they can't let him destroy their game plan. And if the front line is not able to keep him out of the backfield to let Ken Walker III do his thing at running back to give Geno Smith time to throw the football, then they're going to have a tough time keeping the traction they've had most of this season. They've been a pretty potent offense most of the year, but that would be the way to ground this offense if the interior pressure proves to be too much and they aren't able to do anything passing or running the football.
Yeah, Vita Vea has definitely come on this season. There was actually a point in the season where people were a little disappointed in him. And coming into the year, the Bucs had kind of said they need to get a better organic pass rush from their down linemen and not rely on the blitzes and the outside linebackers coming off the edge as much as they had in the past. And Vita was obviously expected to be a pretty big part of that, but didn't happen quite as much as they wanted to early on. But yeah, lately he has certainly been impactful, especially against the Los Angeles Rams. And then you talk about the other pass rushers, the trickle-down effect, Joe Tryon and Shoyinka getting better matchups as teams kind of overcommit to stop Vita. So even with Shaquille Barrett out, obviously that Bucs pass rush is not going to be as potent, but still proving to be as effective as they need to be, as has the whole Buccaneers defense. And honestly, Corbin, this is going to make some people unhappy because that's my key matchup is the Bucs defense versus the Seahawks offense. And I'm going the whole unit. And I know that's not very specific, and we like to get specific on here, but look, more what I'm building off of is the main storyline, right? Because what happens, NFL fans, you've been watching this game for a very long time. What happens when a struggling offense finally gets it together? Sometimes it's within a game and it's a drive or two. Sometimes it's in a season. When the offense finally gets clicking, guys, what happens? The defense falls apart, right? And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Buccaneers fans out there have already seen this happen this year. The Buccaneers scored the most points they scored all season against Kansas City Chiefs. Well, the Buccaneers defense also gave up the most points they've given up that season or this season, and the Kansas City Chiefs still came away with the win. So I'm worried that, if we have seen a kind of an awakening from Tom Brady and the Buccaneers offense, like Mike Allstott asserts that we probably have, are we also going to see the one-off, and I guess it would be a two-off for this season, egg from the Buccaneers defense? And it's not just because the Bucs defense, because Corbin, the Seahawks fans know this, but Bucs fans might be surprised to find out that Seattle is top 10 in rushing yards, passing yards, total yards per play, has one of the lowest interception percentages as an offense, is top 5 on third down, and is scoring touchdowns at an 85% clip in goal to go situations. Oh, by the way, 4th in the NFL in scoring. That's what the Buccaneers defense is up against this week. So not only is it just kind of the NFL football gods playing games with people of, oh, your offense wants to wake up while your defense is going to fall asleep, but also this Seattle Seahawks offense is legit. And again, this isn't a week or two in. This is midway through. Like, we're halfway through the season. This is an offense that's absolutely ready to fight.
Yeah, I think when you look from the other side of the equation, when the Seahawks are on defense, I mean, there's a number of intriguing matchups here. And I know that the offense for the Buccaneers has not been able to get going up until the end of last week. And there have been a number of games where they just haven't been able to get many points on the board. But Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Julio Jones, if he's able to play, obviously was held out today in practice, but had rest listed there. But that trio of receivers and getting Cameron Brate back as well, getting those players out there against Seattle's secondary, to me, is the matchup to watch. And I especially want to see, it was just like last week, DeAndre Hopkins going up against rookie sensation Tariq Woolen, and Woolen did not allow a single reception when he was targeted defending Hopkins. He did give up a touchdown to Zach Ertz. That was late in the game. Kind of a tough play was put on Nile. But, I mean, he shut down Nuke Hopkins, and really, Kyler Murray very rarely even attempted to test him. That's the point we've reached with Tariq Woolen. When you have 4 interceptions in 4 games, teams stop throwing the ball your direction. And he almost picked off Murray on the only throw he attempted when he was against Hopkins. So will he be able to have that kind of success going against Mike Evans, who's got a little bit different skill set, a little bit bigger bodied receiver, obviously, than DeAndre Hopkins is? But he can be going against a 6'4" corner that runs in the 4.2s. And he has taken those physical and athletic tools, and he has turned into a shutdown corner right in front of everybody's eyes as a rookie. I thought it was going to take him a lot of time to develop. Turns out that was not the case. They've been able to take those traits and his effort, his work ethic, and they turned him into a really good player. But this is going to be a test for him dealing with Mike Evans. On the other side, Mike Jackson, he's kind of making a name for himself. There's been running jokes linking him to the singer, but this guy's a pretty good corner. He's a pretty good football player in his own right. And him going against Chris Godwin on the outside or Julio Jones, that's another really fun matchup. So really, those are the ones that I would single out, the corners against the receivers, because I think that's turning into a real strength for the Seahawks. And obviously, Tampa Bay's got a lot of talent out there, even if it hasn't translated to a lot of points this season.
Absolutely. Tariq Woolen, man, I mean, he was one of the favorite guys at the Senior Bowl this last year. And I remember there was a stretch there during the practices where I was sitting next to Eric Crocker, Locked On NFL Draft, Locked On 49ers, former NFL cornerback, by the way. And I'm just sitting there and every time I saw him do a rep, I'm like, hey, Eric, this is what I just saw on Tariq. Did I see that right? And he's giving me tips and coaching me up on how to evaluate corners. But man, I love that dude out there and wanted the Buccaneers. I'm very happy with Zion McCollum. I think Zion's got a very bright future for the Buccaneers as well, but definitely wanted to see Tariq Woolen wearing one of the uniforms that I cover, but super happy to hear him getting all kinds of love on a weekly basis, not just on your show, but on national shows as well. So very happy for him. But look, real quick, I'm looking at the Buccaneers rushing attack against the Seahawks defense, because if the Bucs offense is going to fully wake up, that rushing attack's got to do it. Right now, the Bucs are 32nd in rushing, but the Seahawks defense, 27th in rushing yards per game, 25th in yards per play. So perhaps this is an opportunity to try to get those things going. Rashad White did a little bit last week. Keyshawn Vaughn got his first action really of the season. Leonard Fournette, not too happy about getting, I don't want to say benched, but not getting a whole lot of action towards the later part of the first half last week. But you know what? James Yarko, my co-host, pointed out that angry Lenny sometimes is the best Lenny. The reason I have a little bit of concern about that is this isn't the worst rushing defense that the Buccaneers have gone up against this season. Carolina's is actually worse. And against Carolina, the Buccaneers produced 45 yards of rushing in that 21-3 loss, 15 carries to get those 45 yards. That's 3 yards per carry. Not going to get it done. Didn't get it done against Carolina. And unfortunately, I think if they don't get it done against the Seahawks, then they're probably also not going to come away with a win. But the biggest difference there, I think, Luke Gedeke, the rookie left guard at the time, was starting. Now it's Nick Leverett, and he's definitely looking better.
Yeah, I think that's an intriguing matchup in itself with Seattle's front line. The last 4 games, they've had some issues with Kyler Murray breaking off some big runs, but you take those out of the equation, the run defense has taken a complete 180 in the last 4 games, and that's kind of been what has spearheaded their turnaround as a whole on the defensive side of the football. They've really been shutting down running backs the last 4 games after the first 5 games, getting gashed by teams, and really has gone back to playing more one-gap techniques and letting their players be athletes and be aggressive. The run defense has improved dramatically. So maybe he's going to be one of those something's got to give type propositions. The Seahawks still don't rank well, as you mentioned, in run defense, but they've been playing much better. Tampa Bay is yet to have that breakout game, and they're looking for it. And that's going to be key for them to be able to move the ball and score points against this much improved Seahawks defense.
Yeah, when I was looking up stuff, man, the last 4 games, certainly this last stretch for the Seahawks have been very impressive just from a total team viewpoint for the Seattle Seahawks. So a lot to look at. And if you guys out there think that you know what's going to happen, perhaps you're going to agree with us. We're going to tell you what we think is going to happen here in a second, but you can turn your opinions and your expertise into cold hard cash with our friends at BetOnline.net. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get all your latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer and esports. They've got it all at BetOnline.net. As of November 8th, Seattle Seahawks quarterback Geno Smith, 20-1 odds to be the NFL's MVP, while Tom Brady is sitting at 100-1 odds to be the MVP. And Aaron Rodgers, the back-to-back MVP coming this season, well, save your money. That's not going very well. And if you love sports podcasts just like these, you can find those at BetOnline as well. Always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more at BetOnline, where the game starts. Prediction time here on this crossover Thursday episode. Locked on Seahawks, Locked on Bucs. Seahawks at Buccaneers. It's in Munich, Germany, but it's still a home game for the Buccaneers officially. Seattle Seahawks 6-3, Tampa Bay Buccaneers 4-5, a matchup of first place teams, each of them leading their divisions, one division a little bit better than the others. Corbin, the Seahawks have scored nearly 80 points more this season than the Buccaneers have. Wow. But they've also surrendered about 60 points more. But I think that's going to kind of happen when you're scoring as much. Still, the Buccaneers are favored by 3 points. How do you see this thing going down? What do you think about that line?
Maybe I'm going to get snake bitten here because Tom Brady's the quarterback on the other side, but I'm not sure what they are basing that line off of. I think the Seahawks should be the favorites, and I would actually go above 3 points in this game because I haven't seen a Tampa Bay offense that has been able to get much going in any capacity. And I can tell you this, if Tom Brady has to drop back and throw 50-plus times in this game with the way the pass rush is getting after quarterbacks the last 4 games for the Seahawks, it could be a very long day for Tom Brady in Munich. And so I'm not going to give a score prediction at this juncture. I'll be doing that on my Friday show, but I will just say this: if that's the betting line, I would completely go that it's going to be swinging towards the Seahawks on that one because I just don't see the Buccaneers as a 3-point favorite in this matchup at all. Especially with them being 4-5, Seattle 6-3. I think one team has been much better on both sides of the ball than the other one. We know that things can be different any given Sunday, though. So obviously the Buccaneers have championship pedigree and they could bring it. I would just think that this betting line to me is a little bit of a head scratcher given where both teams are trending right now.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. When I looked it up for this episode, I was a little surprised myself to see that the Bucs were favored by 3. Look, the bottom line is the Seahawks have scored 27 or more points in each of their last 3 games. Corbin, you talked about that run that they've made, and they've scored 23 or more in 6 of their last 9. The Bucs have scored 23 or more points once all year, and they lost that game. Seems to me the Seahawks should be 3-point favorites. You said maybe even more. I'm going to make my score prediction here. James Yark will be making his on our Friday episode. I'm going the other way. I think 23 points is kind of the floor for the Seahawks, maybe even the ceiling for the Bucs. I got the Seahawks going 23, and because I feel like the Seahawks should probably be the 3-point favorites here instead of the Bucs, I got the Bucs going 20. So 23-20, Buccaneers lose this one. That is my prediction. Not going to make my listeners and viewers happy, but hopefully they like me because I'm always honest with them. So Corbin, looking at this game, I think the Buccaneers offense has got to be the main storyline for Tampa Bay, whether or not there was an awakening there at the end of the Los Angeles Rams game, or if we're just going to see more of what we've seen all season long going up against a very tough Seattle Seahawks team. And then that Bucs defense versus that Seahawks offense, not just because this is the perfect time for a collapse, but also because that Seahawks offense is very good in their own right. I feel like people keep saying that the Seahawks offense is very good in their own right, but I feel like they deserve the right to not have that kind of qualifier there at the end be added on. So it's kind of a weird situation. Then again, like I said just a minute ago, I think the Bucs lose this game right now, 23-20 to the Seahawks. Until I see the awakening, I just can't get on board with saying that is the moment. I feel like when we try to predict the turning point in a championship season or championship caliber season that we struggle at, I think it's always hindsight that you see those things. So the fact that everybody's kind of going, aha, that's going to be the turning point means it's probably not going to be the turning point.
Well, I can tell you Seahawks fans are hoping that is the case and that it doesn't end up being that turning point. But, as I mentioned earlier, I think this game boils down to two things for the Seahawks. Can they limit those explosive plays to the receiving talent that the Buccaneers have? Can the secondary continue to do a good job taking away those explosives? Because that's really been key these last 4 weeks with their defense playing the way they are. They've given up a few big plays, but they've really cut down on those compared to the first 5 games of the season, both run and pass defense-wise. And on offense, I really look at Vita Vea as the key here for the Buccaneers on defense because he is that guy that can single-handedly disrupt a run and passing game with his ability to get into the backfield. The Seahawks have to find a way to neutralize him, whether that means they're mixing in some double teams, they're keeping running backs in the backfield to step up and just try to help chip on him. I don't know what the Seahawks are thinking, but that needs to be priority number one. I feel like if they can contain him to an extent, that this is a Bucs defense that they can run the football on. It doesn't feel like past Buc defenses from the last 2 years where they were so dominant defending the run, and they didn't have to deal with very many backs running the ball the way that Ken Walker III is right now. And so it really boils down to that interior offensive line for the Seahawks. Can they at least stalemate the line of scrimmage most of the game? If they're able to do that with the weapons they've got, you got to believe they're going to be able to put some points on the board as they have all season. But if you don't stop the big fella in the middle, you might have your toughest game that you've had to this point and not really be able to get any traction going on a run game or passing game.
Yeah, absolutely. So there you have it, Seahawks fans, Bucs fans. There's our crossover enemy intel type of episode for you. So as always, thank you for making the Locked On Bucs and Locked On Seahawks podcast your first choice every single day. For your second listen, again, make sure you check out Locked On Sports Today from the games that matter and the biggest storylines in sports. Go beyond the scoreboard, behind the scenes with local experts with insight and that only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today available here on this app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. We're going to be back in. Corbin's going to be making his score prediction tomorrow, so make sure you come back and find that. Bucs fans, make sure you check that out and leave him all the hate mail you can. As much hate mail as you're going to give me for picking the Seahawks, go give him just as much, as I'm pretty sure he's picking the Seahawks too. For Corbin Smith, I'm David Harris. Until we speak again, make sure you're checking out everything we're writing at Bucs Game Day and all Seahawks. Like, follow, and subscribe on YouTube or your podcast catcher of choice of the Locked On Seahawks and the Locked On Bucs podcast. And of course, follow us both on Twitter. Corbin's at Corbin Smith NFL. I am at D Harrison82. If you're out and about, please be safe, be kind to one another, enjoy the game. Thank you for joining us on this crossover Thursday episode on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.